Welcome to Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Phage. Please introduce today's guest on the show. If you love music, and in particular, if you love local music, you have most likely heard of the band, the Peptides. I'm joined by Olexandra Pruchnicky. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks. It's so great to be here. I'm really happy that this worked out to happen.
Yeah, me too, Olexandra. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, how you and your family are dealing with the pandemic.
Yeah, so we are all in one house together. I'm really excited that my stepdaughter, who I usually just see a bit more sporadically, we're actually quarantining together. So it's a really nice concentrated time to be with her, whether she likes it or not. But we're all getting along actually really, really well.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah,
I,
it's been good.
Yeah, and I imagine this has had an impact on you professionally. I know you wear a few hats, but let's talk
Mhm.
about, music in general and working with the peptides. That has obviously stopped completely, but let's do a little bit of history of the peptides because I was saying to you off camera, you know, 10 years ago, 9 of you got together. It's not easy to get 9 people together to form a band. Tell me how you guys came together.
Well, it is the weirdest thing for me because the year before I came into the peptides, I actually was living in Australia and I was in a band there. I came back, felt really sort of just fragmented and disoriented. I didn't really have an artistic community around me, but at the time, one of my best friends was running a radio show on the Ottawa U campus, so with
Okay.
CHUO, and we were running the only LGBTQ program on local radio. And one day we interviewed Claude Marquis and Dee Dee Butters, who are the founding members of the Peptides. Actually, Claude is the main founder, and then Dee Dee for this iteration of it.
Okay.
And at the time, they had just landed a gig with Jazz Fest and they got some really great response for their album they had released. And after the interview that we did with them, we got along so well right off the bat. Basically, we had talked and Claude said, well, we're running auditions for the band. And I almost did an audition. I completely forgot about it. And I got the very last audition spot. I was actually away on a trip when I got an email and I was like, I can't let this slide. I need to figure out some way to do it. So I was jet lagged when I arrived. I came in with, I brought in an audio CD of me singing instead because I was just like, I'm so sorry if this audition isn't representative of what I actually am. And the story goes from Claude and Dee Dee that originally they only wanted 4 singers, but because myself and Rebecca Noel came in with such different takes on what it is to be a vocalist and performer, they couldn't decide between the 2 of us. And they decided, well, I guess we have 5 singers now. So that's sort of how it materialized. And it all kind of came together because they were offered this great gig at Jazz Fest, which just goes to show you how supportive our music community is, even our big festivals like Jazz Fest and Blues Fest.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for bringing us together. And we've changed so much over the years, just reimagined ourselves with every album that was passing. But out of the initial, because we had a 10-piece band to start, and then we went
Okay.
down to 9. And out of the original 9, 7 are still founding members.
Oh, nice.
So,
That's
yeah,
impressive. Over a 10-year period with that many people, it's not that easy to keep everybody together because, this is part-time for all of you, I would imagine, right? So you all have
yes.
different jobs and you have different lives and you have, different relationship circumstances. So that's great. That's great that you've got. So you mentioned that
Yeah.
it's changed. Has it changed musically over the years, or have you kept a common theme over the years?
Well, the theme has stayed the same. It's always been a social commentary, a commentary on what's going on in the world and sort of how humanity is dealing with our changing world. It's always had this feel of being this really fun music, but when you dive deeper into the lyrics, it can be a little sinister even sometimes and a little bit dark. And that's always been the same, but we've gone through different variations of it. Our first variation had more, even some folk elements to it and things like that.
Okay.
That's why we got picked up by Vinyl Cafe with Stuart McLean back in the day. And that was when we were doing this beautiful retro look. And then I remember really distinctly, we had a performance and it was the Picnic en Blanc that they used to do in Ottawa.
Yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got invited to perform at, and it was the first time I spray painted my hair a different color, and there was no looking back. And then our next album we released afterwards was very electronically driven with still some old school samples to it, but we completely redid our vibe and what we looked like, and it was very much pops of color and neon along with black and white. It became very graphic
Okay.
in colors and themes, but yeah, it's just been this really nice transition, and now we're into this vibe where our main sort of inspiration is late 70s, early 80s, cruise ship, like animal prints and tropical, and it's all based on and inspired by the book Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh,
So
really? That is so
yeah,
cool.
so it's called Galapagos, but it's very specifically related to that book.
Right.
So yeah, it's we tend to go really bright and poppy, but there's always some sort of very heady and intellectual root to it.
Yeah, so lyrically you've sort of kept on that theme. What
Mhm.
about the sound? Has the sound changed at all over those 10 years?
Yeah, we did a bit of a Bob Dylan kind of transition where we went from more acoustic and organic to a bit more electronic. We have a few more synthesizers and pads that are integrated by our amazing keyboardist, Scott. So Scott Irving has now sort of diversified. And yeah, we're looking at integrating a few more samples and things like that into it. But what's really funny is our album before this, Love Question Mark, was even more electronic. And now we're sort of coming full circle where we're trying to be more representative of how we play live. So
Okay.
before you would get an album that sounds very different than our live performance. Now we're kind of bridging the gap, and we're really starting to experiment in with our instruments and everything. And our recording sessions, we can afford to now have more mics in the room and be more complicated and go into a recording studio. So yeah, it's we're definitely developing as musicians, and I'd say probably yeah, we went a bit more electronic from the original feel, but now I feel like everything is just tightening and we're really getting to know ourselves better. So,
Nice.
I
I
mean, you
want
would
to
hope so after 10 years.
Yeah, of course. Right? But it's cool to hear the transition, as even just, your look and kind of this persona because, everybody, I think many bands like to play with that, and you guys have played with it so well over the years. And I've seen you live, and I think one of the not only does the music stand out, it's just the entertainment side of it with you guys, the way that you sing with each other and play off of each other, and as you said, the costuming and the hair, it's so much fun to watch. I mean, live is it's
Yeah.
incredible. But I want to talk about your new video. It was released in April, as I understand it. It's called
Hmm.
Invaders. I was telling you off camera that I was just blown away by the production value of the video. It is so incredibly well done, and that bass line at the beginning is
Oh,
like one of the funkiest, fun bass lines I have heard. I'm a big fan of funk too, so that just got
yeah.
me right into the groove of that song. But explain a little bit about that song and its meaning.
Yeah, of course. So, funny enough, you should mention the bass line. It's actually that song was a collaborative writing effort by our bass player, Andrew Burns, and Claude Marquis, and then the lyrics were done by Claude.
Okay.
So maybe that's why we have such a killer bass line integrated in it because Andrew was in charge of inserting it in there. But I'm not arguing with that. I think it's amazing. They did a beautiful job writing it. So, Invaders is, when you look at the lyrics, it's very much about human beings and what is going to be the aftermath, what's going to be what we leave on the earth once we leave. And it talks about how we are the invaders on this planet. Because we've heard it said before that, with things like climate change, the earth is going to continue to exist. It's whether it's hospitable and okay for us to stay on it, which is the
Yeah.
question. So, Invaders tackles what it is we're going to leave behind, whether it's car fume vapors and like all of this stuff. So the idea behind the music video, it takes place in a giant scrapyard that was outside of Smith Falls, who were just absolute angels to us at that location. And the idea is that we are sort of, the peptides are the last ones standing, and we're still doing this epic giant funk party at the end of the world when all we've left behind is this detritus and refuse of like our existence here on the planet.
Well, the backdrop is perfect. As I listen to the lyrics and I see the backdrop that you've used, I mean, I'm not sure you could have chosen anything better than that. I mean,
Yeah, and
it just fits perfectly.
we were so lucky that Dee Dee Butters did the main production on it, and Rebecca Noel was the assistant producer. And so Rebecca ended up finding our videographer, Aaron De Silva, who is just brilliant. And Dee Dee was one of the driving forces behind finding the scrap metal yard in Smith Falls and coming up with the concept. And it was actually only about a week before we started filming, because we had Aaron secured because he came in from BC,
Okay.
and our first choice for a location fell through. And so this was very much, we wanted this type of idea, like a scrapyard, but nobody was getting back to us. And then all of a sudden, they were so good in Smith Falls to us, and they got back to us. They went out for a viewing of the site and came back just with huge eyes, going, "This is what we want."
That's awesome.
So,
And you know, when you watch a video, I don't think many of us have never been sort of immersed in the behind the scenes and how it works. And because, you know, obviously I'm watching the video, there's no microphones around, right? I mean,
mhm.
you know, there's no guitars plugged in. So how does, as an artist, when you're putting together something like that and you don't have, you know, that studio, you know, available to you to work with sounds and so forth, like how do you listen to the music and sing the songs? I'm always just fascinated by that.
So we made the active choice. The music video is directly made to the recorded version of the song that's on the album. So that
Okay.
makes life a lot easier. So what we did was we had a speaker with us at all times that was playing the music. And so when you do a music video like that, especially with us, you quickly have to decide what is worth spending the full amount of money on and what is worth having shortcuts. So, and it's just smart finance. And basically, what you do with syncing up is you always have like, it's really basic. You just have a small speaker that's constantly playing the song, so that you're always playing to exactly that version of the song that's going to end up being superimposed on top of the video.
Right.
So I'm sure there are great outtakes of us sounding like garbage just singing on
So
site.
you're not just lip syncing. You're actually you're singing out loud during the whole thing.
Yeah, because we're also vocalists and we can't help it. Like, we're just always
Yeah.
singing.
Well, and I would
So
imagine
we
it would
tend to
be
do
really
that.
hard to probably try to get that same energy too. Like when I watched it,
Exactly.
I thought I almost knew in my heart that you guys were actually belting it out
Oh,
yourselves.
we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, we really, really were. It was just by the time you reach, like, three-quarters of the way through the day and you're starting to fade out and you're trying to guard your vocal cords, that you need to be a bit more careful about that. But yeah, like, I know our guitar player was fully playing his solos. He just wasn't plugged in. I know our
Right.
drummer was playing. I have behind the scenes footage. I was actually watching just the other day of Alex doing his drumming, because we're all, know that if you get it on the wrong angle, people are going to see that you're not actually playing.
Right.
So,
Let's. I want to talk. Go back to just talking about you personally. As I understand it, you have an A-type personality. So I wonder how an
yeah.
A-type personality is able to balance as an artist, right? You have this artistic drive. Being an A-type personality, how do you find balance in that?
Well, it's kind of funny. So, all the things that I do to keep organized and that make me an A type personality sort of act as this skeleton. And if I have the skeleton in place, then I can be as creative and as outlandish as I want around it, because I know my foundation is in place. So, when it comes to, like, for example, the peptides, I'm the one who does I'm the librarian. So I keep a Google Drive that has all of our promotional material. I have a spreadsheet that monitors which festivals we've applied to. Did we have success the year previous? Is it worth applying to again this year? When is the cutoff point? And it's all color coded so that at a glance I can take a look at it and know what's going on. And just to give you a perspective on the extent of that, is there's over 100 festivals inputted into this Excel spreadsheet.
Wow.
So I do that kind of thing. And then also I make sure that we have up-to-date websites, up-to-date EPKs, so that's electronic press kits and all of that stuff. And, I'm tend to be the one who asks questions on, hey, you mentioned an email, about 3 weeks ago from someone approaching us about a gig that might happen in September. Have you heard follow-up on it? So I
Right.
sort of am the elephant in the group that never forgets. And I have this tingling spidey sense all the time, being like, wait a minute, there is a task that hasn't been done yet. So
So this actually helps feed that part of your personality in a way, right?
100%. And it
Yeah.
makes me feel like, even it it's really hard, especially in this situation right now, to get together and write music. So it's hard to feel productive and it's hard to feel like we're moving forward as a band. But if I know that we're applying to all the right things, if I know that, we're on top of potential things in the future, it gives you a sense, especially since I'm the one who lives in Toronto and they're all in Ottawa, it gives me a sense that I can contribute to the group without having to be there in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it just, one of the biggest hurdles is when you're in a music group, understanding what the larger game plan is, because there's 9 of us. We've been doing it for 10 years, but if there wasn't a serious intention there, we wouldn't still be doing this. So we
Yeah.
need to have some understanding of some greater business plan and things like that. And that actually brings me a lot of peace and lets me feel like I can be more of a free artist, knowing that the trajectory is on course. So that
So,
kind of is how it balances out.
yeah, so as I understand it, you stay in contact with members of the band. So how, as I know it's difficult, they're all different individuals, but as a group, how are they feeling about, this is a new world, a new situation. How are they dealing with it?
Well, we were a little frustrated because we had so many beautiful things in place. Like literally, the last weekend in March was supposed to be a big songwriting weekend. We had a location set up. We're all going to sleep over at my parents' place. Actually, they were going to come to Toronto. I was going to go to Ottawa. We were going to take over the house, have a big writing weekend, which we've done before, and it was so wonderful. And we wanted to get underway and really push forward on new material. And then we had 3 more gigs set up just for April and May alone, and we were really excited about all this. And then within, that March 13th window, all of it all of it just disintegrated underneath us. And it was really hard. I have to say that us delaying the release of the video that was recorded in the summertime for Invaders worked in our favor. And at the time, it was all of these small things that led to the delay. So our videographer, he actually, an editor, he actually had some sort of wrist injury that happened, so it made editing hard. And then we were very picky about the cuts and stuff that we wanted.
Right.
So it all delayed it, but worked in our favor. So that's helped. But now it's funny because we've sort of gotten a fire under our butts to start creating things and start doing interviews and start doing IG Live events and things like that. So it's been really good. And one of the big things that I know brings us solace is being able to still perform. So like Dee Dee has been doing her solo stuff on Instagram. Juan, our guitarist, is still doing all sorts of production stuff, because what's amazing is artists aren't performing, but they're writing a lot right now. So
Yeah.
he's getting files sent to him. So he's still doing a lot of producing. Andrew, our bass player, runs a music school. So he's doing online lessons. Um, Rebecca and Scotty are just making music as well. Like everyone is starting to get into a new normal, like you mentioned before. And we're starting to get some speed under us, and we're working on a couple of extra videos that are specifically done in that sort of Brady Bunch style that
Oh,
everyone's doing.
excellent. Oh, I love that style. I don't know if you know the band The Commotions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay. So they just put
Rebecca's
out.
in that one
Yeah, that's
too.
right. That's why I brought it up. I know
Yeah.
I know Becky. She's a great talent. I mean, she's done
Oh,
so many from solo and been in so many different bands. She worked with the Cooper brothers, if I remember correctly, for a
yeah,
little
and
bit
so
as
is Dee
well.
Dee actually.
Oh
Rebecca
yes,
started.
that's right.
Yeah, so Rebecca had really great success with La Voix, so The Voice Canada over in Quebec. And then her schedule and everything got switched up. So because Dee Dee was available, she actually was able to do some work with the Cooper brothers as well. And it was, yeah, it's just, and not only within our small community of the Peptides, but also other local singers and local bands, we've been reaching out. And it's just
Oh,
been
nice.
really nice to have this sense of we can all do this together.
Yeah, and it
It
doesn't
really is like
surprise
that.
me. It doesn't surprise me. There's a couple of groups in Ottawa that have always stood out to me, and that's, musicians and artists, and also those in the culinary field as well, restaurants.
Yes.
I mean, these two groups, if you want to talk about, how much money that charities have raised, a lot of it has to do with those two specific groups that have always given, and volunteered their times. And I always encourage people, what, these are the people that are helping raise money for those organizations in the city that are helping, those of us that are less
Yeah.
fortunate, people that are vulnerable. So I always encourage, if you're going to buy some music, you're going to download some music, you're going to, go to a restaurant, try to do your best to support those local bands and those local restaurants, and and bands like yourself.
Thank you. And, it's been really encouraging to see people support us in that way. There's a music distributing site called Bandcamp, and they just recently they do this initiative. It was the second time they've done it, and I'm hoping they're going to turn it into a regular thing over this isolation situation. And Bandcamp, what they did was they waived their revenue sharing for a day last week.
Okay.
So a bunch of us Ottawa bands gave shout outs to each other and all of this stuff saying, if you've bought our album, maybe consider buying someone else's album that's local and buy it off of Bandcamp because we get all the revenue today. And so those types of initiatives are really helpful. Even just, ways to support bands that people don't think of all the time is pressing the like button, doing views,
Yeah.
doing all of those numbers and analytics really help, because when we're being looked at by festivals and we're being looked at by booking agents, a lot of times they look at our follows, they look at our numbers. And so that's one of the reasons why bands push their social media so much, is not only because we want to reach out to people, but we need it.
Yeah, it's part of your resume,
Yeah,
right?
because no matter how good you are, they're not going to book you if you can't in some way guarantee that you're going to get turnout. And the easiest way to see that is how many followers you have. So.
Well, on that end, how do people support you? Tell people how they can get in contact with the Peptides.
Of course. So right now we're doing a really big push on trying to get video views. So
Okay.
Invaders is amazing. We're very
It
proud
is.
of it. We've been blown away by the fact that we have over 100,000 views on Facebook video alone.
Nice.
So you can find it. Probably the best way to find anything out about us is going to our website. So it's just thepeptides.com. And then once you go there, you'll see all the widgets for seeing us on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, and you'll be able to find us that way. But our handle kind of remains the same. So with Instagram, you can find us at the Peptides. With Facebook, it's the same thing,
Okay.
and you'll be linked to all sorts of different videos. It's now posted on IG Live, IGTV. So Instagram TV has our video, YouTube, everything. And we're going to be running some little events. We're doing a live session. Two of our people are going to be interviewed with CKCU.
Oh, terrific.
And Andre Gagne, who used to work with Ottawa Life magazine, is doing an interview with us on Sunday, and that will be Rebecca and Scotty that are doing that. And just keep your eyes peeled on our Instagram account. We're constantly doing, lunchtime chats and little things like that with other local artists that we're trying to connect with. So that's the main way to get a hold of us. I would say our website will connect you to all the other platforms.
Excellent. Terrific. Well, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me here on your show. I really love what you do, so
Oh,
very
thank you.
appreciated.
Well, you guys stay safe, and I know you're in Toronto now, but you do come back and forth between Toronto and Ottawa. And again, encourage our viewers to visit the website, the Peptides website, to find out all the information. All their social media contact information is on there as well. So you take care, and I'll talk to you again sometime, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.